The story begins with one of the biggest scandals the police department has ever seen. Sergeant Choi Jong-mo is moments away from receiving a major promotion. His co-workers are celebrating. The media is outside waiting. Everything is going perfectly until Detective Kan Tai-jo suddenly arrives with handcuffs. And before anyone can react, he arrests Choi publicly in front of the entire country. Choi desperately begs Tai-jo to stop, not because he's innocent, but because the scandal will humiliate the entire police department. But Tai-jo doesn't care about reputation. He cares about justice. So without hesitation, he handcuffs Choi to himself and drags him through the station while cameras explode everywhere. That one decision destroys Tai-jo's career overnight. Days later, Tai-jo is demoted and transferred back to his hometown of Gaseong, a quiet rural town surrounded by fields, tunnels, and old secrets. But the second he arrives, it's clear something terrible is happening there. Late that night, two schoolgirls walk home together. After studying late, the roads are empty. The tunnel ahead is dark, and then suddenly, they stop. Standing near the roadside is a scarecrow. But both girls immediately feel uneasy, because there was never a scarecrow there before. Before they can process it, a terrified woman suddenly comes running out of the tunnel. She's crying, panicking, barely able to breathe. The woman tells the girls to stay quiet before hiding herself inside a roadside ditch. 10 seconds later, a man carrying a knife appears from the darkness, chasing after her. The girls are completely frozen. The man asks if they've seen a woman pass by, but after getting no answer, he disappears into the darkness. Terrified, the girls continue home. One of them, Jeon-rain, kindly waits outside the tunnel for her friend, Minji, to cross safely before leaving. But after Minji walks only a few steps inside, Jeon-rain suddenly disappears, completely. The next day, Daseon wakes up to horrifying news. A teenage girl's body has been found near the tunnel entrance, and when Tai-jo arrives at the scene, he instantly realizes this isn't an ordinary murder. The victim's hands and feet were tied tightly. Her underwear was stuffed into her mouth. Panties were pulled over her head, and she had been strangled to death using stockings. The crime scene is horrifying, but what scares Tai-jo even more is the pattern, because this is already the fourth victim, murdered the exact same way. There's a serial killer in Daseon, and he's still hunting. The strange part is, the police already arrested someone for the murders, a small-time criminal named Lee Seong-ji, but the second Tai-jo sees him, he becomes suspicious, because he recognizes him from an old case. After checking Seong-ji's background, Tai-jo finds only petty theft and indecent assault charges. Nothing violent enough to match a serial killer. No history of murder. No sadistic behavior. Nothing. That's when Tai-jo discovers the prosecutor handling the case is Cha Se-young, his former classmate and biggest rival. The tension between them is immediate. Years ago, Se-young bullied Tai-jo during school, and even now, both men absolutely hate each other. Tai-jo accuses him of rushing the investigation just to earn a promotion, and after the newest murder, that accusation suddenly becomes very real. Meanwhile, Tai-jo questions Minji, the victim's best friend and the last person to see her alive. During questioning, Minji suddenly remembers something important: the man with the knife near the tunnel, the same man chasing the terrified woman that night. She described his appearance to the detectives, and immediately, Tai-jo begins tracking suspects. Their investigation leads them to a laundry shop owner, acting suspiciously. The man closes early every night, keeps to himself, and avoids eye contact, so Tai-jo and his partner secretly follow him after work. At first, nothing happens. Then suddenly, a woman screams from an alley. The detectives rush in and catch the suspect threatening a woman with scissors. But after bringing him in for questioning, the truth comes out. The woman is actually his wife, and the man only threatened her because she had run away from home. Tai-jo immediately realizes this man isn't their killer, but during questioning, the wife reveals something terrifying. On the night of the murder, she saw a scarecrow standing near the road, surrounded by stray dogs. But after hiding for a moment and looking back, the scarecrow was gone. That single detail changes everything. Tai-jo suddenly understands the scarecrow wasn't the creation. It was a disguise. The killer had been standing perfectly still, near the road waiting for victims, pretending to be a scarecrow. Tai-jo rushes back to the tunnel and searches the area carefully. and hidden near the crime scene, he finds a hat, physical evidence proving someone was disguised there that night. The killer was closer than anyone imagined. But before Tejo can think further, a figure suddenly walks out of the tunnel. Tejo immediately pulls out his gun, only to realize it's Cha Si-young, and once again, the two nearly start fighting right there. Si-young coldly tells Tejo he's now officially in charge of the murder investigation, and despite their hatred for each other, they will have to work together. The next morning, Tejo gathers his team and makes an important observation. A serial killer this careful doesn't suddenly become perfect. At some point, he must have failed, which means somewhere in town, there could be survivors who escaped him. So Tejo orders every sexual assault case from the last 2 years to be reopened. The detectives go house to house questioning women who never officially reported attacks, and eventually, they find someone connected to the murders. At first, the woman refuses to speak. She's terrified, ashamed, traumatized, but after Tejo patiently gains her trust, she finally reveals what happened. The attacker tied her hands behind her back, exactly like the murder victims, and before attacking, he appeared dressed as a scarecrow. The woman explains how she survived. She tricked the killer by telling him the stockings were inside her bag, and the second he turned around to grab it, she ran for her life, screaming for help. But before the interview ends, she reveals one final detail. The killer's hands were unusually soft, almost like a woman. That clue completely changes Tejo's strategy, believing the killer targets isolated women at night. Tejo creates a trap operation. Several female officers go undercover around town, pretending to be alone, including Detective Seo Jin-won. And that night, the killer strikes again. He captures another woman and begins tying her up. But while moving through the area, he notices Seo Jin-won nearby. Immediately, he changes targets. Seo Jin-won realizes she's being watched and starts running. The scarecrow chases her through the darkness. Meanwhile, Tejo notices dogs barking wildly nearby and realizes something is wrong. Seo Jin-won manages to hide briefly and secretly drops a camera into the bushes as evidence. But before help can arrive, the killer catches her and violently knocks her unconscious. By the time Tejo reaches her, she's barely breathing. Blood covers her back. The killer escaped again, and Tejo is furious with himself for failing to protect his team. Seo-jin is rushed to the hospital in critical condition, but Tejo's night somehow gets even worse. At the same hospital, his younger sister suddenly arrives covered in bruises after being beaten by her fiancé. Seeing her injuries completely breaks Tejo emotionally. Consumed with rage, Tejo brutally attacks a man outside the hospital after hearing him insulting his family. The fight becomes so violent that officers are forced to drag Tejo away, and for the first time, the detective completely loses control. Tejo ends up locked inside the holding cell. His career is falling apart, the serial killer is still free, and his personal life is collapsing around him. Then late at night, Cha Si-young quietly appears outside the cell, and in a calm voice, he tells Tejo something chilling. From this point forward, they are solving the Scarecrow murders together, no matter how much they hate each other. As the episode ends, the Scarecrow stands silently in the darkness, watching, waiting for the next victim.